And we're live. What's up, Giants? Welcome back. We're going to do something a little surprising today. So we're live on all of our platforms.
Surprise!
We'll give everybody a minute to join us. But we are
Yeah.
talking today about the
Aw.
tortoiseshair.com. Don't put www in front of this because it won't go anywhere. You'll just be sitting there like circle of death.
That's interesting.
So tortoiseshair.com, that you can see our Indiegogo campaign. We are 65% funded. And our intention with this is to ask for your support and donations to our program and our project. And today we're going to do a full book reading of the Tortoise's Hair from end to end. So beginning to end. And you get all the chimes on my desktop, the alerts and everything as a bonus. So nothing
Was
to
that
do
your
for you
computer
yet.
on the
I
last
think
one?
it was.
I was like, I'm keep looking at my computer. Like, what do I need to mute here?
Yeah. I'm like,
It's
dang it.
okay.
Because I've gone
Yeah.
through and I shut off all the system notifications and then it's like, nah, it's gone. So here's what we'll do. Hang with us. You can go back to the tortoiseshair.com afterward. We'll put the Indiegogo link in the description. But we are going to do a full reading of the Tortoise's Hair. This is a story that I wrote in 8th grade as a school project. And so it's shifted. In 2013, I rewrote it. I've always been poetic, so I added my poetry to it. And similar to the lines of the giants and the smalls, it's a metaphor of our world. Internally, a lot of us really have a hard time accepting ourselves as we are. We try and fit into the world, and then when we do fit in, the world changes and then we no longer fit in. And so we're just constantly chasing this idea that we're unacceptable, right? We're pursuing acceptance outside of ourselves. And life can be pretty challenging when you don't love yourself, and others kind of remind you of why they don't love you. We just had this conversation with Fari, and she was an Iranian woman who came to the UK and then to America and went through some big challenges. Go back and watch that show and that episode. It can really do a lot of damage internally. And so what this book is about is embracing your differences and learning to self-accept, self-love, and have self-compassion. And this is much needed right now. So my goal is to not cry through this thing, but it seems like every time I go through this, I get emotional. Um, and and you can come back and revisit this story. Now, this is the unedited. It's not even beta tested yet. Like, we haven't even done a beta run on this yet, but this is the raw book as it sits right now in manuscript form. We're working on the imagery. Eduardo Podge is the artist, and you can see right behind us his artwork. He's just an incredible artist. He'll be starting to work on these images here likely in the next few weeks. So as soon as we finish the campaign, then we can afford to pay him. And that's where these monies go. So the money that you're putting into the donation is going to pay for our illustrator, Eduardo Podge. It's going to the editing. It's going to the book layout and design. Right?
Hold on. This is not that
That's
yet.
that's clever, right? It's not the master beta.
This is
Yeah,
just
it's just the
not
beta.
even beta yet.
Yeah, this is the original. Yeah. Once we were told we were unprofessional, and yes, we absolutely are. So this is us.
Yeah.
Tortoiseshair.com if you want to go after, but don't go yet because we're going to read the book. I'm going to dive in right now, and
And this is
as we
gonna
go
get like
through it,
the editing done. It'll get
yeah,
the 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 images,
yeah, I
and then
got
what we're
spoiled by
working for
that.
now, right, is like printing, because printing costs like are above and beyond. It's
Yeah,
a lot. It's a lot to get it all figured out and laid out the way that we need it to,
for
and
the
so
for the
this will help for that.
price, there's a layout price and all of that has to be factored in, and then the cost to get the cost down to where it's reasonable. You have to order thousands of copies, and
A
that's what we're
bazillion.
shooting for. So we hope that you'll participate. We've only got 4 days left in the campaign, and so after we're done here, if it speaks to you again, go to the link and donate. And, whether it's $20, we've had people do as much as $1,000 for a donation. So whatever works for you, we want to honor that, because there's a way to donate at every level.
If it works for you and you donate $1,000, you get your name in the book somewhere.
Yeah,
So it's
in,
like
in the imagery of the book.
yep.
So,
So you'll
yep,
get like whatever town or village, there might be like a sign or something
yeah.
pointing a direction or something cool. Figure it
Yeah,
out.
there's one donor. His family name means flowing waters or waterfalls. So we're going to create an image of a waterfall, and it will be named after his family. Steve Hardison donated, and there will be a street sign that's called "Loving You and Be Blessed" is what he wanted on there, and it'll have the initials that he usually uses. So these are ways that you can be memorialized in this book with us. At $500, your name goes in the back of the book, and you'll be there forever. You spend $10,000 if you want to do that. We're going to dedicate the book to you. So, like, this is your book. Um, so we haven't had anybody do that yet. But if you want to be that person and make that donation, the forward and dedication is yours. It just makes this possible. It allows us to get it out to the world and do the distribution that we need to do. So, are we ready?
Yeah, what we're gonna cry a little bit because we relate to Frankie with no hair. So here we go.
Maybe we should read it hats off in memory of
Oh,
Frankie.
jeez.
Yeah. Uh, so this is called The Tortoise's Hair by Nicholas Townsend Smith. So everybody knows that tortoises don't have hair. Well, not anymore, that is. But in a time in the faraway past, tortoises did have hair, and a lot of it. You see, in those days, the world was really cold, and ice covered the land. As far as the eye could see was a blanket of white and blue. The tortoises didn't mind the cold because their hair kept them warm. Another curious thing about them was that their shells were soft. Some of them, or none of them, thought much of it because that is the way it had always been. Every tortoise was warm, except for one, Frankie. She wasn't like the rest. She had no hair, none, nada, not even one tiny sliver of a hair, yet she was still beautiful. However, she felt out of place. She was the only one who had no hair. Gosh dang it, I'm getting into the emotion already. Her soft shell was exposed, and there was nothing she could do about it. Being different made Frankie sad. She knew she was different, and all of the other tortoises knew she was different, and they made sure that they let her know. Many of them would call her names or point out what they considered to be flawed. Mainly, they made it a point to let her know she was not like them and excluded her from just about everything they did. Often, Frankie considered running away. At one point, she wore a tortoise wig to try and hide the fact that she had no hair, but everyone knew it wasn't real. She was jealous of other tortoises. She wanted so bad to fit in and be like them, except for the being mean part. She was always anxious and nervous going out in public because she was afraid of what other tortoises would say and do. Frankie's shell began to harden. It hardened to deflect all the negativity she was experiencing on a daily basis. She got to a point where nothing anyone else said mattered. It was her internal conversations with which she struggled. Frankie's shell may have been hard, but inside her heart was still soft. Frankie wanted things to change. She did everything she could to learn about her differences. She read books. She talked with specialists. Tests were done and studies performed. None of them came to any solid conclusions about why Frankie was so different from everyone else. If you want to go beyond, one day, one of the tortoises told Frankie about an ancient tortoise, a wise tortoise, a tortoise who might be able to help her get hair. Frankie was desperate and willing to try anything. This gave her hope. Not only had another tortoise talk nicely to her, but they also gave her information that might help. She wanted so badly to fit in and was willing to do anything to make that dream a reality. Immediately, Frankie packed as many of her belongings as she could in her now hardened shell and set out on a journey that would change her life forever. All she knew was that she needed to follow the setting sun for 5 sunsets, and on the fifth sunset, she would see the home of the wise tortoise. About midway through the first day, Frankie came to a very large cliff. She could see the path on the other side, but between her and the other side was a huge gorge, and at the very bottom, a raging river. It appeared as though there was no way to cross. In front of her was a sign. She approached ever so carefully because the sign was right on the edge of a cliff, and she didn't want to fall. However, she also wanted to see if the sign might help her to figure out how to cross the chasm. Here's what the sign said: Many tortoises have approached this ledge, but only a few have passed. Those who left could only see and live within their past. Forget the times you cried, look at the world a bit differently. To get to the other side, oh man, some of this is a little off. Look at the world differently, thought Frankie. Okay, so forget the times you've cried. Look at the world a bit differently to get to the other side. Look at the world differently, thought Frankie, but the past is all I know. Getting across the chasm seemed impossible to her. She was just a tortoise, and the cliff she faced seemed too difficult. She had a choice to make. Would she go back to the world she knew, or would she press forward, trusting that she could reach the wise one? See the world differently, she said silently. She wasn't even sure what that meant. She wondered how she could change her view. She saw a small hill nearby and decided to climb it and see if she could see the world differently. She climbed to the very top and looked back at the path, the chasm, and the path on the other side. She noticed an ever so faint line from one path to the other. A bridge, she shouted. She ran back down and faithfully took one step out over the chasm where she saw the bridge. She didn't fall. So she took another step and another until she crossed to the other side. Her heart was pounding and beads of sweat built up on her forehead. She was so relieved to make it across. She saw another sign and quickly scurried to it. This is what it said: Sometimes to change what you see in life, change your point of view. This was just a simple test to show you what you can do. Frankie was so excited about what she had accomplished. She changed the way she looked at the problem, and that opened up possibilities. That one little choice allowed her to continue on her way. The sun set, and that was the end of the first day. Exhausted from the challenge, Frankie slept soundly through the night. The sun was up early, as it always does, and a beam of light shone on Frankie's eyelids. The brightness and warmth calmly woke her. She yawned and stretched. Frankie noticed something peculiar. She noticed the snow was melting slightly. In the world Frankie knew, the snow never melted, not even a little bit. She found that odd. She had never seen that water before. The subtle drops from the melting snow and ice were the most beautiful things she had ever seen. She played with them and stared at them for some time before realizing she still had something to do. Even though she had a goal to reach, she still took time to enjoy the simple beauty around her. Frankie set out on the path. This was the second day, and the sun had risen since she began her adventure. She wondered what other experiences she might have as she journeyed to meet the wise one. As she walked down the path, she noticed another tortoise walking toward her. Strange, she thought. That tortoise has no hair, just like me. The closer she got, the more familiar that tortoise became. Another hairless tortoise? What are the odds? She asked herself. And why is she so familiar? It was then that she realized it was not another tortoise. It was a reflection of herself, a giant mirror blocked the path from horizon to horizon. At first, she tried to find a way around it, but that was not possible. And it was much too high to climb over. She spent hours yelling at herself in the mirror, throwing rocks and walking as far as she could one way and then another. Then she stopped on the path and looked at herself in the mirror, angry that she was stuck here facing herself in some ridiculous mirror. She noticed another sign sitting next to the path. Frustrated, she wandered over to it, reading the message aloud. Don't be angry with what you see. It's part of the process, too. You should know there's someone to love. That special someone is you. You have to go through. There's no way around. This mirror goes on for miles. The only things that will let you through are your heartfelt laughter and smiles. Frankie thought this sign was absurd. It was an obstacle. It was blocking her from seeing the wise one. She was in no mood to laugh or smile. Frustrated, she had to sit here facing herself, and she didn't like what she saw. She would look at herself and look away. She could not accept that she was hairless and all the other tortoises were not. She didn't want to love such an ugly creature. She was mad, not happy. So she stuck her tongue out at herself. This made her laugh a little. She started making funny faces and laughed even harder. Then she heard it in her mind. The sign is not absurd. It's your self-image that's absurd. She started laughing out loud. She had a moment of discovery. She realized that she was the one choosing to be angry about her looks. She was the one choosing to be sad Damn it, Ryan. I can't get through it, dude. She was the one choosing to be sad and choosing to be lonely and irritated and upset. She stopped everything and looked deeply at herself in the mirror. It's the first time she had felt beautiful. She saw herself as a beautiful and enormous smile erupted on her face. Her striking white teeth shined brightly in the sun. Then it happened. When Frankie decided to love herself just the way she was, her smile reflected the sun's rays onto a button on the mirror. It was unnoticeable before, but the light made it stand out unmistakably. She pushed it, and a door opened. She would be able to continue her journey after all. As she crossed to the other side where she saw the next sign, this is what she read: when you decide to love yourself, no matter what others say, you'll be able to make it through your life and troubles will get out of your way. Just then the sun set. Another day had passed, and Frankie slept through another night deeply. 2 days had passed, and Frankie was well on her way to see the wise one. It was the third day, and Frankie wondered what lay ahead in her path. It was warmer than the day before, and the snow and ice continued to melt. Green began to show through the snow. Frankie was curious. The only colors she knew were white, gray, blue, and the darkness of the night. Even her food had no bright color. The green stuff smelled so good, like she could eat it. She decided to try some. It was like heaven to her. She had never tasted anything that looked and tasted so good. It wasn't much, but she knew she wanted more. She walked all day following the sun in the direction it sets. The day was coming to a close, and she came to a huge patch of the green stuff. A sign sat next to the path with a large note: important. Read this sign before you do anything. In smaller print below it, this is what it said: what you see before you is yours, if that's what you want, to share, to keep, or hide away, or if you'd like, to flaunt. But just a word of caution to remember as long as you live: if something happens to it, you must be one to forgive. For if you want to continue, you can't hang on to a grudge, because if you do, you'll notice that from this place you won't budge. What an odd message, Frankie thought. She felt that nothing would happen to all of her green stuff. She wanted it. And she decided it would be hers. So she ran around on it, ate as much as she could, and laid around doing nothing. Just then the ground began to shake. Huge creatures came out of nowhere. She barely got out of the way as they trampled the green stuff. She was scared and angry all at the same time. She narrowly escaped being crushed. But as the dust settled, she noticed the green stuff was nothing but mud. Ew, she huffed. You big dumb animals ruined my stuff. She was so mad at them. She started throwing mud at them, but they just trampled off into the distance, unaware she was even there. Frankie was so caught up in the moment that she sat there stewing about what happened all night. All she could think about was how wrong those creatures were for ruining her prized possession. She thought about how she would get even. She schemed about what she could do to them. She cried about what she lost. The sun came up the next day, and as it shined on her face, she realized that she had done. She was so caught up in getting even and being angry that she forgot about the real reason that she was even out there. It was then that she remembered the message on the sign. Nothing stood in her way. There were no obstacles, only the one she had created in her mind. Her unwillingness to forgive those creatures that kept her in the same place through the night. She knew what to do. She stood up and dusted herself off. Though the creatures were long gone and they were still on her mind, she decided at that moment that she would forgive them. After all, she reasoned in her mind, they didn't know what they were doing. By letting go, Frankie was able to move on, and move on she did. As she passed where the patch of green stuff used to be, she saw another sign. This message hit home. For her, it was something she would never forget. Sometimes things will happen. Other creatures can make you cry, but if you will forgive them, your sorrows will pass you by. Frankie knew this would be important, especially since she was so different from the others. The other tortoises had said things that hurt her, but she forgave every one of them. Their words would no longer affect her because she knew it was not worth hanging on to. Frankie saw the world differently. She saw herself differently. She saw others differently. She traveled along the path. When the sun set, she slept. She reflected on the things she had learned, and she anticipated her meeting with the wise one the next day. When the sun rose on the fifth day, Frankie set out on her path again. This would be the day she met the wise one. This day was warmer than all of the rest, and flowers began blooming in the grass that now surrounded Frankie. The cold was becoming a distant memory, and Frankie could sense a change was coming. A sign on the side of the road caught her attention. I have been expecting you. I wonder when you would arrive. My answers told me your story, and I'm so happy you're alive. Frankie knew the message was from the wise one. Not only would she get to meet her, but she was also curious about why she would want to see her and if those messages were even about her. The sun was beginning to set, and Frankie continued to walk. Then she saw it in the distance. On top of a small knoll sat a tree. The tree was made into a house with two shiny windows, a small front door. The tree was unique. In place of leaves, it had long flowing hair, similar to the hair found on all of the tortoises back home. Frankie's stomach turned with excitement. She would finally get to meet the wise one and possibly the hair she so desperately sought. Frankie ran up the trail and eagerly knocked on the door. She heard some shuffling from inside and a small clink as if someone were setting down a dish. Footsteps slowly moved toward the door and creak. The door opened. There in the doorway stood the silhouette of an old tortoise covered in flowing gray hair. Her kindly eyes looked at Frankie as she said, I've been expecting you. We have much to talk about. She gestured Frankie toward the inside of the house and said, come in, have a seat. Frankie made her way into a cozy little home. The wise one invited her to sit in a comfortable chair next to hers and close to the fire. She asked Frankie if she would like something to eat or drink, and she kindly declined. She was so excited to be there that she didn't feel hungry or thirsty in the slightest. She looked at the old tortoise and asked, how did you know I was coming? She said, I knew you were coming even before you were born. Stunned, Frankie looked at her curiously. How's that even possible? She said. The old tortoise looked at Frankie, smiling and nodding her head. She knew this must seem odd, that she would know about her before she was born. She began to tell her why, and as was her nature, she shared it in a rhyme. Since the beginning of tortoises, a story has been shared that one day a great change would come, and tortoises should be prepared. Everything that they had known would come to a sudden end, but not of life or happiness. A new world would amend. When ice and snow covered the earth and hair would flow for all, one is born that's different to answer a unique call. A simple tortoise will be born without one strand of hair to usher in the changes and help others prepare. But she would have a choice to make, to be different or the same, to fit in with the others or live a life of fame. The choice is very simple and must be made by her. Will she live just as she is or choose to live with fur? Others have come before her and chosen to just fit in, but if she chooses differently, a new age will begin. Frankie looked at the wise one. Is that it? She asked. The wise one nodded her head. She asked her, what do I have to do? She looked at her simply and said, choose. The how? Asked Frankie. The wise one explained it simply. You can be like the other tortoises if you'd like. All you have to do is go out to my tree and take some hair from it, place it on your head, and you'll grow hair. You'll look and act just like everyone else. The world will not change, and you can go on fitting in with the rest. Or, she said while staring at her intently, you can choose to be who you are and usher in the greatest change in tortoise history. Frankie was torn. Her whole purpose for meeting the wise one was to fix what she thought was wrong. Now she found that she had an enormous decision to make, to fit in or be different and watch the world change around her. Frankie walked outside and looked up at the beautiful hair hanging from the tree. All she had to do was place some on her head and she would fit in with the tortoises. Before beginning her quest, that is all she wanted. However, on her journey, she learned to look at the world differently, to love herself as she was, and to forgive others. She grew more on that journey than she did her whole life. She knew she wanted to live in a world where everyone was accepted, even if they were different. She wanted to live in a world where everyone was open to new perspectives. She wanted to live in a world of love, kindness, and forgiveness. She knew what she had to do. She walked back inside and told the wise one, I choose to be me. In what seemed like a flash of color, that simple decision started the change the wise ones had anticipated since the beginning of Tortoises. Magically, the world outside changed to a world of beauty. Flowers and trees and grass sprouted everywhere. The snow and ice melted, and the gray clouds faded. In an instant, the wise one changed from a tortoise covered in hair to a stunning creature with simple hard shell and a soft heart. The magic spread to every tortoise, and within a short time, all tortoises looked similar to Frankie. Many were shocked about their appearance at first, but each of them suddenly saw the world differently, saw themselves differently, and were loving in an instant. In place of having hair, soft shells, and hard hearts, they all became loving creatures with simple hard shells and soft hearts. They saw the beauty that had been hidden from them. Colors filled the land, and all of them were happy. When they inquired about the mystical change, the story of Frankie and her journey was shared. Her fame spread throughout the land, and from that time forward, tortoises have never been the same. The end. Yeah, well, there you are. That is the tortoise's hair. So it's crazy that the stories can bring out the emotion. I don't even know what the comments are, but that's what this book is about. Is in a metaphor that we all kind of go on that journey of trying to figure out who we are and trying to fit in. Fit into what? Um, this is a message about you. My emotions are going crazy right now. That's what we're creating. The artwork, the illustrations are absolutely beautiful. You can see the wise tortoise, kind of the imagery of the wise tortoise right there behind Ryan, the imagery of Frankie the tortoise behind me. Um, I think we live in a world where this is much needed. And when you can imagine yourself reading this for you, primarily for you, and then you think about your kids, grandkids, loved ones, those that in the world could really use this message. That's what we're creating. We have a track record that says we know how to do that. The Giants and the Smalls is another version of this. I have more stories that aren't published yet that are along these lines of really discovering how valuable we are as humans. And so, yeah. Um, our mission is to impact 100 million lives globally, and this is one of those ways. Yeah, thank you. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, going to tortoiseshair.com and contributing, that would be awesome. Right? We've got 4 days left on the campaign. Yeah.
Why there's the tears though? It's like, because for one, you see moments in your life, at least for me, like I instantly went back to spots in my life where I felt that, where I felt exactly like Frankie. And then I see so many of you and have conversations with you where I know you felt that, and sometimes you're feeling it currently. And I have moments where I feel it in the moment. Where am I worthy? Am I enough? Do I matter? Am I making a difference? What's the point? All these things, right? And so that's how I related to Frankie. And I think about the kids that are, especially in the last 3 years, that if we've come through COVID and our social interactions basically stopped for a while in schools because of at-home learning. And these kids there was so much fear and anxiety and worry and doubt about the future, what was going to happen. And those kids' minds were being molded and shaped, and their view of the world was being set. And now we're seeing a lot of the effects of that the further we move through time. And personally, it's why the giants and the smalls also related so much, is because teaching those kids that they're giants already, and then now there's even more challenges to work through. And so if they can understand how powerful they are and how beautiful they are just the way they are, like, and that their differences, just like Alina said, their differences make them beautiful and unique and special. To me, that's everything. So needed.
Hmm. Yeah, everybody that's on, I see there's quite a few on with us right now. A lot of comments. Thank you for these comments. Um, they they really do matter. Those inner child moments matter because that's your development, and recognizing that you're perfect the way that you are. It's not an excuse for bad behavior. It's a justification for stepping into your potential, and it starts with the recognizing that you are already good enough. You are already greatness, and fitting in sometimes isn't all it's cracked up to be. And so, and I hope I know this book is already done. Like we've already raised enough for the illustrations, we've raised enough for the editing, the layout. But what we're trying to do that's at this point is raise enough for the printing, and so we've got a few days left, and so that's where those monies will go. Is we'll be able to get our publisher and printer to not only print these but maybe help with distribution. Distribution is a big thing when it comes to books. You'd have the greatest book in the world, but if nobody knows about it, this is from Richard Paul Evans, nobody cares, like, because they just don't know that it's there. And so this is where we could use your help on a couple of fronts. Is help us get the word out about this book, but help us get the printing costs covered as well. We're just about there. We've had an outpouring of support, and that's what you're creating. Go back and listen to the story again. Like, if you get a chance, go back and just sit with this and think about your own life and how you've grown and how you've tried to do what Frankie did in the story. Think about your kids and their development and how this might help them in their development, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, right? If you don't have your own kids, like, think of others that you love, loved ones that you think, holy crap, this is a perfect message for them. So they are longer reads. When I do these books, I don't write them in the traditional sense. They're metaphors, and I don't try and fit them into a third grade, fifth grade, seventh grade model just because I would lose the message. And so I'm out of the box a little bit with this. I was told by one agent that in order for it to fit in with their model, I've got to cut this way down, and then you lose the entire message. I won't do it. So the Giants and the Smalls was that way. The Tortoise's Hair is that way. It's it's out of the box, right? It's in between. It's almost like an adult self-help personal development book and a kid's book all wrapped in one. And so all of these messages are that way. You look at the Giants and the Smalls, and the 12 journeys that come out of the Giants and the Smalls, and how each of us go through those as we develop and create, step into our giantness. The Tortoise's Hair is another way of awakening to your greatness. It's a companion to the Giants and the Smalls. So any other comments, Ryan?
I just want to say thank you to our tribe. The comments actually are super they bring up a ton of emotions because of the special bonds I have with so many of you. And so as you're commenting and relating and stuff, I'm seeing your face and loving you really, really hard right now. So thank you.
Mm. I think we should post that up here. If you're not a part of that, you're seeing this Tribe of Giants on Facebook. That's our global community. And it's not just about the Giants. It'll be about anything that we do, but that's our community. So if you're not a part of that, come join us. So it's a great community. Um, yeah, I wish I could go back now and see all the comments because just I was off screen here reading. So
If you would have saw him, you would have bawled even more. They were making. I couldn't stop crying. I had to like turn my camera off to blow my nose because I'm a big like
yeah,
blubbering pile of mush over here.
yeah. Dude, it's
Uh,
what blows my mind is I wrote this book back in 8th grade. It was an English class in middle school, and I had two other friends that were supposed to help me write it, but they didn't do anything. So I turned it in, and my teacher asked me, did they help you write this? And I said, no, it was me. Um, and then to rewrite it in 2013, which was an impactful point of my life because in 2013 I was, coming out of, I had written the Giants and the Smalls at that point, and I felt like it was never going to get published because we didn't publish the Giants and the Smalls till 2020. But it was written sitting there. I knew the vision of it, but I didn't know if it would ever come to be. And then, in 2013, I'm writing from that space of, man, I feel like life's never going to change. I feel different. I could see how my kids might feel different. And, a lot of these messages, I'd go and share them with my kids to see how they respond. And now they're becoming teenagers, so they don't want to listen yet anymore. But when they were little kids, they were all into it. Um, but they still get the message, right? They still know that they're valuable. I make sure that I let them know that I love them exactly as they are, that they don't have to put on a show for me or to get my love. And so I just this is a message I needed at that time. It's a message I need today. It's a message my kids need. So it's amazing to see that something that was written when I was 13 years old is now becoming a reality quite a while later, like 35 years later. I'll be 50 in 2 years. It's like, holy crap, man. It's like some of these books are finally coming to be. So, just to give you a sense too, I have other books that I've written along these lines that will come out. They'll be published. But same messages, that you have greatness within you. There's no going out and getting. There's just unbecoming all the things you think you're not, right? And so that's what we're trying to help you do. So go to tortoiseshair.com, follow the link in the description over to the Indiegogo campaign. We've got a few days left. Share the crap out of this, please. Like if you know somebody that could benefit from that story right there, share the story. Take this and post it. It's on YouTube right now. So you can go to our YouTube channel, Wake Up with Giants TV on YouTube. That's at the bottom of the screen. You can grab the link and share it in your social media. You can share the Facebook post. It's on my personal wall, so you can share it from there. If you're sharing it from the Tribe of Giants group, it won't, just because it's a private group. It won't share out of there. So you've got to go to the Giants and Smalls page, or go to my page, or go to YouTube and grab the link and share it from there. And find somebody that you think could use this message today and share it with them. And let them listen to the story and tell them you love them just like they are. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Thank you guys for being on with us. Ryan, is there anything else?
Oh, just go make it a giant day.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you guys for being on. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you too.
Bye.